Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. My name is Casey Payton. I run the Virgin Islands Justice Initiative. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It's a law firm, but it's also a nonprofit. Okay, so we're not like a corporation or a big business or something like that. Our purpose is to come in and talk to kids and to provide you some information, give you an opportunity to talk to attorneys. Something's going off. I don't know what it is. Oh, that's a school bell. Okay, let me just take a second because it's distracting me. It's finished. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, okay? I didn't just start, wake up one day and become, a person running a nonprofit. I had to go to college. I had to go to law school. After law school, I came down to St. Thomas in 2014 and worked for Judge Watlington in the family division. Then I went over to the public defender's office. I was a public defender representing folks who couldn't afford an attorney in their criminal cases for 2 years. After that, I went to legal services after Hurricane Irma and Maria and helped out with folks who needed disaster legal services assistance after the storm. And then I started the nonprofit, okay? And so the information we're bringing you today is based on a lot of experience, you guys. It's not like we just started doing this. But we have a wonderful, wonderful guest today. We have Chief Territorial Public Defender Julie Smith-Todman. When I was at the Public Defender's Office, we were colleagues. She is now the boss, okay? So she is the one in charge at the local Territorial Public Defender's Office. And I have a lot of respect for her, to be honest. And so I'm going to let her introduce herself, and I'm going to let her kick this off, okay?
Good morning, everyone, and happy 2025. It is a pleasure to be here with you this morning. As Attorney Payton indicated, my name is Julie Smith-Todman. I am the Chief Territorial Public Defender. Once I became the Chief Territorial Public Defender, Attorney Payton and I had a conversation about how could we collaborate and bring information to our community and to persons who may not always get or have access to attorneys. And so we came up with this project called Know Your Rights, was what we started to think of it as, and then a further intervention and criminal deterrence, because I only practice criminal law and I see too many young people in my practice. And so we wanted to make sure that we provide you with real-time information, accurate information, and give you the opportunity to ask real questions and understand that we will be extremely honest with you, right? So we're opening it up for you to tell us or ask us anything that you want to ask us while we also provide information to you. Is that fair? Okay, awesome. I guess the first thing we're going to ask is, what grades do we have here? Do we have 9th graders? 10th, 11th, and 12th. Awesome. And so my path to becoming the Chief Territorial Public Defender was long. I went to college in Colorado after graduating from high school in the Virgin Islands. I went to school in Colorado, University of Colorado, Boulder. Go Buffs. Then I went to law school, University of Florida in Gainesville. Go Gators. And then I returned to the Virgin Islands, and I also clerked at the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands. It used to be called Territorial Court. I clerked with Judge Soraya Diazi, doing family and also civil and criminal law. Then I clerked at the the District Court of the Virgin Islands for Magistrate Judge Jeffrey Bernard. And then I did private practice for a little time in St. Croix, doing the whole gamut of civil and criminal law. But before I returned to the Virgin Islands, I also worked in Florida for a major law firm where I did construction litigation. and administrative law. So, and then after being in private practice in the Virgin Islands, I got an offer to go to the public defender's office, and I've been there for at least 20 years. So I've basically risen through the ranks. All right? So what does know your rights mean? We want to talk about Miranda rights, asking an attorney, online safety, how court involvement affects your future, and the impact of an arrest and felony conviction. And if you have any questions about any of those topics, please raise your hand and let us know. So let us start with, does anyone know what a Miranda right is? What your Miranda rights are? Yes.
Like when you get arrested, after talking to the mic. Like when you get arrested, they tell you your Miranda rights when they place you under arrest.
And what are those?
You have the right to remain silent. Well, I don't know all of them, but that's one example.
Mm-hmm. Now, anything else you know?
You have the right to an attorney if one cannot be provided to you. If you cannot afford one, one will be provided to you, and that's all I remember.
Thank you.
Let me mention that. All right. Let me mention that if you participate today, we don't have any big things. We don't have pizza, but what we do have are these cool stickers. You might think stickers are for kids. I don't know. These were drawn by a local illustrator. The local illustrator's name is Sarah Ann Mitchell. She drew these specifically so that we can give them out to kids when we go into the schools. If you participate, you will get some while supplies last, all right? And so they really reflect on the culture here in the Virgin Islands, something that you can't get anywhere else except through our program.
You also had more to say on the Miranda rights.
I was saying anything you say can be used against you in the court of law.
That is correct. So the Miranda rights, if and when you are arrested, the officer is supposed to read you or tell you your Miranda rights. That is, first of all, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say and do can be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to who? An attorney. And if you cannot afford one, one will be provided for you. That's important because if you just start speaking, what's going to happen? They're going to repeat everything that you've said, and then you can end up incriminating yourself. So it's important that you know your rights. And why is that important? Because young people do get in trouble. And we want to make sure that you are knowledgeable. How can young people get in trouble? Anyone knows what a misdemeanor is? Or a felony charge? Anyone? Anyone?
You mean tell them? Okay. So we talk about, probably on TV, you've heard them talk about felonies, talking about misdemeanors. And you might kind of know that a felony might be more serious, right? A felony is what starts taking away some of your rights. But I don't think on TV they ever go into what's the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor, okay? And so it's something simple enough that kids could know, but most adults don't know what it is. So we're going to give you an opportunity to find out now before you're in a situation where you lose your rights and you don't realize why, okay? So a misdemeanor is something that's smaller than a felony. Felony is something that's bigger than a misdemeanor. But what are we talking about here? What we're talking about is when you get arrested and you get charged with a crime, how much time you could go to jail. How much time you could go to jail. So for a misdemeanor, if you are arrested and you are charged with a misdemeanor, you can go to jail for no more than 1 year, okay? No more than 1 year. If it's a felony that you are arrested and charged with, you could go to jail for longer than a year. All right? And we're not talking about, you know, the whole situation that happened when you got arrested. Because when you get arrested, if you know somebody that's arrested, they're not arrested for just one thing. All right? Usually if you get arrested, it's arrested for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 things all at once. And when we say a misdemeanor or a felony, we're talking about one of those 3, 4, 5, 15 charges. Okay? So
What's the charge, right?
yes.
So,
So
a quick example of the
well, I think so. But before we go into examples of misdemeanors and examples of felonies, can anybody in this room tell me the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony? I see a hand came up here, right here. A little shy hand. Come on.
Okay.
Go for it.
Difference. The difference between a misdemeanor and a felony. You cannot get more than 1 year for a misdemeanor, and you could get more than 1 year for a felony.
All right.
and that's it.
She got it.
Correct.
She got it on the first person. That usually doesn't happen.
That's incarceration.
Yeah.
That is, you mean going, that's incarceration, going to jail. So, don't think that, well, I'm going to go to my house. This is going, what's the incarceration penalty? All right? So we'll do a quick game. So I see this wonderful backpack here. Right? And I really like this colorful, anybody can see this nice colorful backpack this young man has here? So, look, we were once young, right? And we see things that we like. And it doesn't mean that we should do it, but because we see things that we like, we take things. And what is that called if it's not yours? Correct. And so because I see this wonderful bag here, this young man's going to, move his arm for a quick second here, just because, right? I decided to do this. Now, this is a simple example of taking something that does not belong to me. How much well, I'm not going to ask. Maybe this backpack is worth under $500, right? Maybe $499.99. But what did I just do? I did what? I stole. It's called larceny, right? Stealing. And because it is worth $499.99, so it's less than $500, you will be charged with petty larceny, which carries up to 1 year in jail. If it was worth $500 or more, that would be grand larceny, and it would be a felony. And grand larceny, anyone can tell me what they think grand larceny, the penalty is, the incarceration period is for grand larceny? Anyone? Anyone knows or want to guess what the penalty is for grand larceny? Take a guess. Take a gander.
Like you just said, over.
Well, petty larceny is 1 year. What do you think grand larceny is?
Over 1 year.
Over 1 year. How much time do you think it is?
5 or more.
5 or more? Okay. And you think 3?
Yeah.
What do you think?
7.
7? 5? 4? Let me tell you what grand larceny carries in incarceration. 10, up to 10 years. So anyone has, the newest iPhone in here? What's the newest iPhone? Tell me. An iPhone 16? Anyone knows what an iPhone 16 costs? About over $1,000? Definitely over $1,000. So that's ooh, is that the newest? Oh, Jesus. Amen. So, do you see that wonderful iPhone your friend has there? Costs over $1,000. If someone was to steal that iPhone because it costs more than $500, they could be charged with the crime of grand larceny.
I got a question. I have a question though. So say that, you know, you make a mistake, you kind of come for his bag here, right? But you don't know what's inside, right? You think the bag is, you know, probably worth less than $500. It's a bag, right? And so, but you don't know what's inside. What turns out is inside is one of those phones, but you didn't know. You didn't know. Are you charged with a misdemeanor or a felony if you didn't know?
You are charged with the felony, all right? Correct. So another example, what we see often, so we see a lot of theft. We also see another thing, assaults. Whether it is simple assault or third-degree assault. So sometimes young people get in trouble for fighting somebody else. So if you went and this young man here, this young man decides to punch him, that's an assault. Right? An assault can be extremely serious. So he's mad at, what's your name? Nehemiah. And he punches Nehemiah. He can be charged with simple assault because, you know, it was a punch. He probably got a bruise on his face. Nothing, you know, no serious injury. But let's say he punched him in the eye, broke a socket. That's more serious, and that's damaging. He could be charged with third-degree assault, an intent to injure. You have to have an intent to injure and a serious bodily injury. So if Nehemiah, the result of the punch causes a broken eye socket, that's serious bodily injury. He could be charged with third-degree assault.
Okay, so I'm going to play a little game where I'm going to throw out a quick little scenario, and we're going to let the Chief Territorial Public Defender tell us what kind of a charge she thinks it would be, whether it be a felony and a misdemeanor, and if she knows about how much time you could go to jail for it. You know, we don't have it in front of us, but about how much time. So and you can think in your head if you think you know the answer. You can call it out if you want to. I'm happy with that. So I was doing a presentation a couple months ago, and during my presentation, a young lady reached around with her pen and she threw it at a boy 2 seats behind her, hit him in the head. What do we think that might be? We're talking about a pen. Just chucked it. Boom. All right, what's it going to be?
Well, a pen could be considered a dangerous weapon, right? So, yeah, it could poke out your eye, correct? And if it hits you in the eye, damage to the orbital socket and to your eye. So you could be charged, as simple as you think it is, you could be charged with third-degree assault because you used a dangerous weapon.
Okay, and what I should mention also is that I had this kind of intuition, this inkling that, you know, they might have been dating, or at some point they were boyfriend, girlfriend. Does that change anything?
No, because then sometimes you're correct, because you can be charged with domestic. What I'm hearing it over here. Come on, yes.
You get charged with domestic violence.
Correct. Domestic violence is an aggravating charge. It's an aggravator. It's between persons who are familial, were dating, lived in the same house. So there are lots of different scenarios that can get you charged with to get an aggravated charge of domestic violence. Okay?
And I don't know if this is still the rule, but isn't there something about how if you get charged with domestic violence, you have to stay in jail? Your lawyer can't just bail you out?
Well, lawyers can never bail you out. But there used to be a time when you could post bail. The police would set the bail based on a formula that they had. But the rule is now that you have to, if you are arrested for a charge that includes a domestic violence element, you have to stay in jail until you go before the judge. So it could be, let's say if you're arrested the Friday, there's usually no court on the Saturday or the Sunday. You may end up spending 2 days in jail before you go before the judge to set bail in a charge that includes a domestic violence element.
Okay, so now playing the game again with assault. Okay, so maybe we're not talking about a pen. Maybe we're talking about, hit somebody with a hand. Does it matter if it's an open hand or a closed fist?
You think it? Okay. Why do you think it matters?
If I slap you, you just be like a little bruise, no matter how hard it is.
If I slap me,
If I punch you in your face, it could break up.
No, I'm gonna slap you harder than you box me.
What? That don't even make sense.
Well, the first thing and foremost, different people have different size hands, different people have different strength, but it is still an assault. If you intended to injure, right? It is an unwelcome touching with intent to, unlawful touching, intent to injure. And then depends on the injury, then you have the aggravating factors. Or if you have a rock, that is an aggravating factor because a rock, what? The rock is a dangerous weapon.
I haven't been in the Virgin Islands very long, 10 years. It's like a third of my life. But I remember since I've been here, there might have been an incident at a school where somebody got sucker punched and broke the boy's jaw. So is that a misdemeanor simple assault? Or if the jaw is broken, does that change?
And why would it be? It's a third degree assault because of what? He broke his jaw because what? You have serious bodily injury.
And I think that you guys are starting to get the gist of what happens as it escalates, all right? But I'm going to give you a couple of more because these are things that we actually have specific laws to address. So something that happens more often than it should is we have somebody who decides they're so angry they're going to put their hand around somebody's neck now. So this is some kind of possible choking situation. Strangulation.
Well, that's actually second degree and carries up to 15 years. I believe 10. I think it's 15 years. Can carry up to 15 years incarceration.
Yeah.
Okay, so the more serious the assault, the more jail time you could face. So we've talked a little bit about assault. We've talked a little bit about larceny. Is there anything that you may have witnessed that you want to ask us about in terms of if that's a crime? Anything you may have witnessed? You have a question?
So let's say you will need nothing, and then the police try to arrest you, and then they don't raid your rights.
You could get set free.
What was the next thing?
If you could get set free if they do that.
Okay, if you can get set free, they didn't read you your rights.
You could use that against them in court. You could use that against them in court.
Well, the first and foremost is they should read you your rights if you are arrested. Can you use that against them? Yes, you can say, well, they didn't read me my rights, but does it really matter if you didn't say anything? Because you didn't say anything. Because the thing is you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say cannot be. That's a different story then. He just asked if they didn't read me my rights. Can I use that against them? It doesn't even matter because at this point he hasn't said anything. So I get that question all the time with folks. Well, they didn't read me my rights. Brother man, did you say anything? Because if you didn't say anything, there's nothing to contest because you didn't say anything. They should have, and we will argue it all the time, all day. But in the end, if you did not say anything,
What if you did?
and if you did, then we challenge it by saying they didn't read you your rights, and then we should suppress your statements so that they cannot use the statements that you made against you. The first thing is be quiet. And the thing is, because you're young people usually, and you're under 18, most of you, your parents will be there. And it's your parents will want to tell you like, hey, you know, you should say what happened. You still have the right to remain silent. I mean, it's counterintuitive because you want to listen to your parents when they tell them what happened. But again, you do have a right, and it's about telling you what your rights are. If you are arrested, your best bet is to wait to talk to an attorney. But in the first place, don't get arrested. Don't do dumb SH stuff that can get you arrested. Meaning, don't go punch your classmate. Meaning, don't stick out your leg because you think it's funny to have your classmate fall. And then what? They fall and they hit their head against concrete. What happens? They bust their head. That's third-degree assault.
Okay, so I want to let you guys know about something else that our organization does. Something else that our organization does for adults is once they do get in trouble, sometimes you can get things taken off your record, sometimes, and our organization does that for free. However, I see grown men crying sometimes because I tell them the things that we cannot get taken off their record, that are going to be on their record forever, which have consequences, like the inability to get a good paying job, to get housing, to go to college, things like that. One of the things that we cannot get taken off your record is any kind of sexual contact, including unlawful sexual contact. And when I say we can't get it off, I'm not saying, oh, you went to trial, you were convicted, it's, and I can't get it off. I'm talking once you're arrested, I can't get it off your record. Okay.
If it was like a frame, you could take it off?
If it was a frame, could you take it off?
Well, we haven't gotten there to determine if it's a frame. Have you
You haven't gotten there yet. And so what I think that our chief here is really good at explaining is how simple an unlawful sexual contact is. Because in my experience, looking around and being at schools, is I see it all the time. I see it all the time. It's behavior I see. And it makes me frustrated as a lawyer who takes things off people's records because I see all these young people who don't know that there's nobody that's going to bail you out of this situation. It's going to be on your record forever, and that's going to be a problem for you. So I want to give the chief an opportunity to share with you how simple an unlawful sexual contact might be.
So, how you see a beautiful young person, and you decide, I'm going to bump up on them, and just take your hand and reach and touch a private area like the breast. That is an illegal, unlawful, unwelcome touch. That is unlawful sexual contact. If you're a boyfriend and girlfriend, that may be a different story. But sometimes I've seen where people break up, and because they used to date, the person thinks that it's okay to go and touch them in that manner, when in fact it was unwelcome. Deciding that, you know what, I want to touch that person on his or her rear end. That is unlawful sexual contact. Okay? And then you can, in fact, be arrested for unlawful sexual contact.
And, I was only a public defender for a short period of time, but I definitely had a client over by Havensite who decided, he wanted to give this beautiful woman a hug. She wasn't really saying, no. She was just kind of like, what are you doing? Got charged for this hug that was maybe a little too friendly hug. I don't know. It's a hug. But there was no consent there. She did not want his advance. He sat in jail for more than 6 months, closer to a year, before I could even get him bail. That's how simple this is. So We're thinking about the stuff we do at Carnival, the things that we do maybe at school, we do at a friend's house. We think it's funny. We think, it's not that serious. Everybody else is kind of being free. But I want you to know, not only can this be a charge, but if you do get arrested, 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, no attorney can take this off your record. This arrest will be there forever, unless you go to trial and beat it. That's the only way I can get it off.
You had a question for us?
So, what if you say you intoxicated and you end up, say you intoxicated and you end up doing something you weren't supposed to do, say during Carnival or something, what would be the charge for that?
That's a good question. Did you guys hear that question? What if you were intoxicated at Carnival or something like that? And what would be the charge if you were intoxicated, right? That's got to be some kind of defense.
Well, voluntary intoxication is not a defense. So people be like, well, I was intoxicated. Yeah, that can help mitigate the sentence, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to be charged for the offense. Okay? And I want you all to also be careful about what it is that you do in vehicles. Marijuana, possession of marijuana is still illegal. Excuse me? Yes, for real. It is still illegal. Okay? Now, if you have a joint, you can still be charged with it, and they'll probably do some kind of diversion, but it is still illegal, and you can get that expunged. But marijuana, because most people think what is marijuana, right? Or we should make it illegal. As of right now, it is not. We can mitigate your sentence, but it is still illegal to possess and cultivate it.
I'm still stuck on this intoxication thing. Because as a lawyer, I had this young lady come into my office no less than every 2 weeks for me to explain over and over again, just because you're intoxicated and you don't remember what happened doesn't mean you can't go to jail for 5 years on your charge. And I had to do this over and over. I had to start bringing in older attorneys, bigger attorneys that were more experienced than me to tell the young lady. Because she's like, I don't remember it. I had been drinking. I don't remember doing it, so I can't go to jail. And trying to explain to her how easy it would be for the government, through the prosecutor, to explain to a jury that she was guilty. And so it's like, we want you guys to hear this now. We don't want you to be in the public defender's office saying, I didn't understand, I didn't know the law, I thought this, other people were doing that, why they just picking on me? We want you to know that if you are feeling friendly, or you're feeling angry, or you're feeling any kind of those big feelings that kids have when you are not in your right mind, you're still going to get in a whole lot of trouble. A whole lot of trouble.
We also want to talk a little bit about, so we've talked about alcohol impairment, being drunk. We've talked a little bit about marijuana. One of the major issues that we're finding among young people is that they don't understand online safety. So, I used to be younger. I still consider myself young, but I used to be a little bit younger. And in my day when I was in school, there wasn't, the cell phones. And I think young people have always, skated the edge where we send I think before you may draw something. Now we send people pictures of private parts. That is a crime. You can be charged of sending people pictures of your intimate parts is a crime. Thank you. Child pornography. So we want you to understand that even if you send it of yourself and you send it to somebody else, you can be charged with child pornography. So we're asking you all to be careful what you do, and understand that there are consequences for sending those images and for receiving those images.
Question. If you're over the age of 18 and it's pictures of you, it depends on no, but it also depends on who you're sending it to, right? If we're people who are over 18 and under 18, we have a problem. Okay? Over 18 and under 18, we have a problem. And in the Virgin Islands and the rest of America, we have crimes that are called statutory crimes. I'm gonna answer this one real quick because this is something that is prevalent in the VI. Something called statutory crimes. A statutory crime means that because of the situation, because of the age of the individual that is the victim, they cannot consent. Cannot consent. All right? I'm going to save some folks here some stress and heartache before their attorney or their family members, because I hope you can share this information with your family members. If you are an adult and you have an intimate relationship with a young person who is not an adult, I'm calling it intimate relationship. The law calls it rape. Okay? It's statutory rape because it's statutory rape because the person who is under 18 is not able to give their consent. They cannot by law. And so what we see, and if you read it in the papers, you will see people who we know in our community, who are big men in our community, who we think well of in our community, going to after the police arrest them, the interrogators, the police officers, interrogators who are allowed to lie to you will tell you and say, well, if you guys were in a relationship, if they said, this young lady said she was over 18, if she said that it was okay, I will let you go. And so we see these big men in our community saying, she had said she was over 18. I thought she was over 18. We were in a relationship, et cetera, et cetera. And now they're spending 30 years over in, a federal jail somewhere because young people cannot consent. And it doesn't have to be that young person who brings the case. A lot of times it is her father. It is somebody in the community who notices somebody, an older person picking up a younger person in a car. It could just be a concerned community member who gets it started.
And Attorney Payton is talking about people we consider to be older. But what if you're 21? You still consider yourself to be young, right? But you cannot have an intimate sexual relationship with someone who is a minor. So some of us will be graduating at age 18 and some of us graduate at age 19. You're considered an adult. You cannot have an intimate relationship with someone who is not. So let's not think of it as like, oh yeah, well, it's this person who's 30 years old. It can happen to someone who is just got out of high school, 2 years out of high school. Okay? So watch what you do. And ignorance, one of the things they teach you is ignorance of the law is no excuse. So meaning, well, yeah, her ID, she showed me a fake ID or he showed me a fake ID, right? That does not matter. 17 and 18, well, that's a little bit different. And so we don't have all of the examples. So 17 and 18 may not be an issue. Right? But if the person is 16 and under, 15, and there's different categories, right? But if somebody's 21 and their girlfriend or boyfriend is in school and age 16, that is going to be a problem.
Okay. I would like for us to open this up to hear some new voices from the room because there's a whole section of the room over here that I haven't heard anything from. And I'm curious if anybody in this side of the room has any questions. Keep in mind that the cost of a lawyer, if you are paying for this time from a lawyer, the cost of one lawyer in the Virgin Islands might run around $400 an hour. or 500 or more. 400 is a fair price, $400 an hour, and this time is free. So if you have a question, I'm starting to see some questions pop up from people I haven't heard from. If you have a question that you would like to hear the answer to, if you would like to hear an honest answer from an attorney, let me see your hands. I saw a hand right here. Come on. All right, which one you got? Okay. Yes, your question. No? I'm telling you guys, once it's time for us to leave, people are going to have questions. We have some time right now for some questions.
So he wanted to know if it's a crime to steal from like somebody like a chain, a golden chain.
Okay. We have a question about whether it's a crime to steal a person's chain. And I'm curious, are you saying from their neck? Wait. I have a question. Is it stealing it off of their person, like off of their neck? Or are you saying like stealing it like you saw it somewhere? Okay. Or we're not talking about you found it in some parking lot somewhere. Okay. All right, you want to answer that question?
So yes, that is a crime. For it's stealing first and foremost, right? And you've taken it from the person, off of the body of a person. So yes, that is a crime. Is that what you wanted to know?
Yeah, and what about the others? What about the other scenarios? Because I had asked, was it off of the person? These details matter in charging. So was it off of the person? The next sample would be, was it off of like maybe they had dropped it? And then the next one would be you found it somewhere. But let's just hear from each of these, because you guys might think about something called finders, keepers, losers, weepers. You found it in the street somewhere. You want to know if you can get charged with grand larceny for that?
Well, yes, you can, because I had a case, beautiful, wonderful iPhone. Somebody was in, one of those little shops, grocery stores. Someone placed their iPhone. They were looking at something to purchase. They left their iPhone or forgot their iPhone. A shopper came in afterwards, saw the iPhone, picked it up, and left the store with it. They were charged with grand larceny because it was an iPhone, which was, more than $500. And so their argument, and we hear this all the time, well, I found it. Well, you know what? The person who had left it came back looking for it. And so there is no, finders, losers, right. There's none of that. Right. So he got caught because there was surveillance. The young person came back looking for their phone. There was surveillance video that saw this other person take the phone and walked out of the store with it. Instead of turning it into the store owner, they left with it. So yes, that person was charged with a crime, and their defense, what they wanted to say was that person should not have left their phone.
Yeah, I had one where it was an iPad left in the parking lot at Yacht Haven Grand. An iPad left. So you're thinking you driving around, walking around the parking lot, you see an iPad there. I had a client who had picked it up and it was in his backpack. Security came around and said, I think you put something in your backpack, called the police, charged with grand larceny. All right, we got some good questions that are coming out. Give me a little space here so I can walk down the middle. Thank you. All right, who has not asked a question? I have a question here.
It's like I walking around, right? And I end up seeing a gold chain on the ground. Can I still be charged with robbing?
Okay, so the question is, you're walking around. We want for clarification. I'm walking around. I see a gold chain on the ground. His question is, can he be charged with robbing?
Well, you won't be charged with robbing because that's not robbing, right? You found something, you picked it up. That can be charged with larceny if you keep it. So you found a chain. Look, I'm saying see where the nearest police station is and say, hey, I found this, because people are always looking for the things that they have misplaced. That is the safest. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. That is the safest bet. You may not like our answer, but do you want to risk? Do you want to risk getting in trouble?
All right, all the way over. See, now the question. We got a hot section over here. We got another question on this side.
All right, is it a crime to drive a car without registration?
Without?
Registration.
A car without registration?
Yeah.
Like if the car is not registered?
Yeah.
Okay, the question is it a crime to drive a car that is not registered?
So we have some folks here who are saying, yes, it is a crime. Anyone here has a question for us?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes.
So, if I rob somebody as a minor, how many years I could face in jail?
So if he robs, the question was, if I rob somebody as a minor, how many years can I face in YRC? And
You guys over here heard it.
YRC is, is jail for young people. And
We missed the question here.
if I rob someone as a minor, how much time can I face in jail? And that is, the YRC is Youth Rehabilitation Center. That is the jail where young people go to, that the judge can send you to if they find that the offense is serious enough to send you there. And as a minor, you can stay in YRC up until the age of 19. So even though you're charged as a minor, you can stay. And then, but as a minor, your cases are sealed, right? The only time your cases are unsealed, it'll be if a judge decides to unseal some cases because of, let's say, there's some extenuating circumstances. But usually, 99.9% of the times, anything that you're charged with as a minor remains sealed. Right? So no one can see your record as a juvenile. But it does not mean that you should be doing these things. Because you can spend your time in jail, away from your family, away from your friends, away from your loved ones. And then, you know how many times we've seen the young people at YRC say, man, I just want to be home. I just want to be chilling at home. Right.
So the question, though, I think we missed half of the question, because the question was, if you rob somebody, right? How long, and you're a minor, how long can you go to jail? Now, we answered the question of if you're charged as a minor. That's if you're lucky. If you're lucky, you can stay at YRC until you're how old? 19. Now, in the short 10 years that I've been in the Virgin Islands, I have seen several cases where somebody was a minor who went into a place. It's not a burglary. It's not a robbery. It's a burglary. You're breaking and entering, or maybe you're going in and you have a firearm or something else you think is going to make you look tough, so people give you the money in the grocery store, in the McDonald's, in the wherever. But see, something can happen when you're on this trip to rob somebody. What can happen is you're with your friends. You guys all have a plan. We're going to pretend we have guns. We're going to pretend we do all these things, right? You got this plan. I'm saying this. You're going to pretend to do these things. You're going to get the money. You're going to go. But sometimes your friends don't follow the plans, and somebody brings an actual gun. So your agreement with your friends is, I'm going to go in and I'm going to have a pretend gun. Or maybe your plan is, I'm going to drive the getaway vehicle. I'm not even going inside. What happens? How much time can you, as a minor, go to jail if one of your friends decides to go do their own thing, bring a gun, and shoot somebody? But that was not your plan. That was not your plan. You had no weapon. So let's talk about how much time as a minor you can go to jail if you're in that situation.
So I hear lots of conversation, and lots of great conversation. As a minor, you can actually be transferred to adult court. And so then you will face the charges as an adult.
But why? What charges are there?
So those are, that is second-degree murder, first-degree assault, first-degree murder, robbery, first and second-degree robbery, depending on the elements. And you're looking at minimum 15 years up to life imprisonment if that person dies. So you have to consider that you can be transferred your case, even though you started out in juvenile court, because let's say you were 14 or 15. The judge can transfer your case to adult court.
And this piece is really important, you guys, because I remember being in law school. I remember being in my criminal law class. So I don't know any of this stuff. I'm just asking like the why. Why if I go in and I'm robbing somebody and I don't have any weapon, why am I being charged with second-degree murder? Why? Because it does not feel fair. And the thing is that in all states, there's something called a felony murder rule. This is a rule of law that has been adopted into law everywhere. And what it means is if you are in the act of any kind of felony, and somebody gets killed, if you are in the act of any felony and somebody gets killed, you can be charged with murder. That is the rule.
Is you're saying, well, I was not there. I was not there with the gun. That was not my plan. But you are an accomplice to the plan, right? Which was to go and to rob someplace. And so you will get charged under the accomplice liability, as if you were in fact the principal, the person who acted or carried out the plan. So you're in the car, you don't know what's happening on the inside, but you're waiting as a getaway driver. So you're charged as an accomplice. Okay? Any questions about that?
We got about 20 more minutes.
So one of the other things we want to talk to you about is the true impact of an arrest and a felony conviction. Attorney Payton discussed it a little bit about not being able to obtain a job. You also, if you want to go to college, you cannot get federal assistance. You can be prohibited from getting student loans because you have that felony conviction. Additionally, when you're applying to colleges, they do ask you if you've ever been arrested and or convicted. So you may have been arrested and not convicted, but the thing is, this is going to be on your record or application for a job, for college, to go to the military. Because look, let's be honest, not everyone in this room wants to go to college. Let's say if you want to go to a trade school. How many of you want to be those, big truck drivers? There are many. Thank you. Right? They ask you those things on your application. And sometimes the cost is prohibitive and you want to get financial aid or you want to get a federal student loan. Those schools cost money just as if you were going to a college. And so if you have a felony conviction, you're not eligible to obtain that financial assistance.
Yeah, it goes further than that. When I go and speak in front of the legislature, when the senators ask us to come in and testify and explain, we call these collateral consequences. So this is, now you had your contact with the courts. Maybe you have your felony on your record. Maybe you have something less than a felony on your record. But there are consequences. We call them collateral consequences. And a lot of times people don't realize that record's going to be a problem until they're like this close to getting something they want. Right? Like you're this close to your dream job and your employer says, nah, we're not going to take somebody with that record. Or you want to get in the military, or you want to get some kind of housing and you can't pass a background check, right? And so there's also some professions. You want to be a lawyer, you want to be a doctor, you want to be an accountant, you want to be these different professions. A lot of professional degrees, professional licenses require that you not have a record. So for example, when I was in law school at Howard University School of Law in Washington, D.C., when they sat us down our very first day, they said, you know, if you have any kind of record, I don't care if it's traffic, something that went to warrant something, they said, come and speak to this person. Day one, law school is 3 years long. They say, come speak to this person. Because the hope at that school, because that school is a gift and a blessing, is that this individual lawyer that they're going to set you up with, hopefully, in the 3 years you're in law school, can clean up your record enough that you will be allowed to practice law. Because you can't always just go to school and say, I want to become something. The professional licenses are something that you have to maintain in order to be able to do that thing. So you may in your mind have an idea of your dream job, but there may be some collateral consequences that you can get if you have something on your record that will not allow you to do that job, even if you went through school, even if you passed all the tests, you spent all your hundreds of thousands of dollars, your family's so excited, they went to your graduation day, now you can't do that job, you gotta start over. Okay, collateral consequences are real. And if you go on, I don't have it on our website yet, maybe I should, but there's like hundreds of collateral consequences that come from having a felony on your record. It's not just you can't have a right to vote. It's not that you can't just, serve in a jury, There's so many things you can't do. And so it's almost like you're a second-class citizen once you have that, because all the people around you have the rights to do things, but you're moving around the world like with this thing on you that's saying, you can't make as much money as other people. The focus of our organization is really on economic justice. We don't want to see Virgin Islanders being held back because of decisions that you didn't know the consequences of. We want you to be able to make good decisions based on knowing that if you go down this path, you're not going to be able to make as much money. You're not going to be able to have that house you want. You're not going to be able to have that job you want. And that can be frustrating. Most of the people that we get their records cleared are older as in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s. And they're just like, I'm so tired of this holding me back my whole life. My whole life it's holding me back. I wish I would have known.
And so that's why we, the Office of the Territorial Public Defender and VI Justice Initiative, have collaborated to bring this information to as many people as possible. And so does anyone have any additional questions for us on anything we discussed? Any questions? Who haven't asked a question yet?
If you pass over 10 charges, what will happen?
If you pass?
10 charges.
What does that mean if you pass over 10 charges?
If you get like over 20, like convicted and all that.
If you get convicted, just exactly what Attorney Payton was talking about. If you get convicted of anything that's a felony, you have collateral consequences. Are you talking about as a minor or as an adult? As a minor. Well, depending. As a minor, your record is sealed. So no one will see your record unless it's a case where you end up being transferred to adult court.
But also, just because you're in high school doesn't mean you're a minor. Can we kind of wrap our heads around that? Just because you're in high school, I turned 18 in high school, okay? All right, we turned 18 in high school. There's situations where you may go to college and maybe you're a big baseball star and you have a scholarship, a full ride to your dream school, which has happened here before. And because the school heard about this fight you had on campus, they say, we're not giving you any money and actually we don't want you to come to our school. So you had this idea in your mind that you're going to become a professional baseball player because you are on the right track. You have the scholarship. You have the great school. You're going to be in the eyes, all the recruiters are going to see you. But here in the Virgin Islands, I've watched that dream get taken away, where the school and the recruiter said, no, we don't want you because you got in a fight in high school, in your high school, the final semester. It's done.
Impacting dreams. Young man here has a question.
You're in a car with adult, right?
You know what?
Say like you're in a car with adult, right?
You're in a car?
In a car with adult.
A car?
Adult. Oh, yeah, like you see you
You're-
driving with adult, right?
No, you're driving with an adult.
Right. And then we get pulled over, but then he got arrested, right? But they didn't know he had a mortar weapon. Can you still get arrested for it? Even though you don't have nothing to do with it.
Okay, so he's asking about a minor is in a car with an adult. That car has, the adult has a firearm in that car, and that firearm is traced to having killed someone. Can the minor also be, the adult was charged, can the minor be charged? The minor, yes, can be charged with possession. It's called constructive possession of a firearm. So if you have 4 people in a vehicle and there is a firearm in that vehicle, all 4 of you can be charged with constructive possession of the firearm. Now, does it, even if you didn't know, were you in arm's reach? Were you in arm's reach of that? And the thing is, that's something that your attorney will have to, it doesn't mean that you may get convicted, but the question is, can you be charged with it? And that's where we come in to then show that you probably didn't have any knowledge, you were not in arm's reach of it, and so you should not be charged with constructive possession of the firearm.
This is actually the question that brought me to want to be in schools, to be honest. Because when I was interning in law school, I got to go to this really big, high-power civil rights nonprofit called the Southern Poverty Law Center. And one of the things that they did there was they would help young ladies who were in jail for decades because they happened to be in a boyfriend's car when somebody went inside and killed somebody. Okay? And this isn't just one situation. When I was there, they had a couple of them. And so it may not feel relatable to you today, but let me ask if this is something you can relate to. We have a young lady, you may be such, who you have a boyfriend, him and his friends may or may not have a firearm. Maybe not, but you decide, you're going to go in the car. The young lady is the one who I always wanted to speak to, because you may trust your boyfriend to not put you in any kind of danger, but also, if somebody in the car did have a firearm, it's not going to be you, right, that gets charged because it's not your firearm? Wrong. That is wrong information. Yes, you will get charged. You have a boyfriend, you're in a car, and there's a firearm in that car. Everybody is getting arrested. Everybody's pictures are going to go up on the consortium. Everybody is going to go to jail, and it will get figured out at some point on the way to trial, which could take years, okay? It's not something that's just going to go away like, oh, I was there, but, don't take my picture. I don't want to do a mugshot. I'm just going to go home. It wasn't my gun. It was my boyfriend's car. It was his friend's gun. If you are an individual in this room and you think about getting in a car with other people, it's not your car, really think hard. Is it possible there could be a firearm in this car? Because I'm letting you know, if that car gets pulled over for any reason, run the red light, the officer doesn't like you.
That's the thing.
What if you didn't know? She's saying, what if you didn't know? So my whole point is, it doesn't matter if you know there's a firearm in the car. If there's a firearm in the car gets pulled over for running a red light, everybody in the car is getting arrested. And we're just talking about a firearm. We're not talking about any kind of drugs. We're not talking about the scales and all that stuff. I'm talking about a firearm because in the Virgin Islands, there is a mandatory 10-year minimum that you spend in jail if it's an unlicensed firearm. I know there's a little... There's a little caveat because right now this wonderful office is somehow making it so people spend maybe 3 years in jail, but that's about to change. It's going to be, if this happens to you, it's most likely going to be a 10-year mandatory minimum for everybody in the car who gets convicted.
And you asked if it's a licensed. So you asked if it's a licensed firearm. So if it's a licensed firearm, you're not. Well, then we're facing even more serious charges and lengthier jail sentences, right? But the important thing is, you shouldn't have one. That's the most important thing. And if you have a firearm, it should be licensed, meaning you go and you apply to have a license to carry that firearm. And I think that's what we're trying to get across to you, is that watch what you do, watch the company you keep, and be aware of your surroundings. And same thing, if you have drugs in the car, or the person that you're driving has drugs in the car, constructive possession. And then, yes, you can be arrested. Now, will you be convicted because you didn't know? That ends up being sorted out. But in the meantime, you are charged. You have to go before the judge. Your parents have to post bail if they can afford bail. You can end up having an ankle monitor. Your rights can be restricted. You cannot go out after 6 p.m. You have a curfew. So there are many consequences until it's figured out as to who owns it, or because the thing is, both of you could have been in the car. 4 of you, 2 in the back don't know that there is drugs in the car, but the 2 in the front know that there is weed in the car. And understand that surveillance has gotten really good and clear. So they will see you inside the car. They will see you roll. They will see you collect the money from the person that comes up to the car to pay for the item that you have.
The police search your car for just running a red light?
Can the police search your car for just running a red light? The answer usually is no. However, by looking in, they've stopped you for running the red light. First of all, yes, they can stop you for running the red light because it's a traffic violation. And usually they use the traffic violation to get further information, meaning they will walk around the car. They will peek through the window of the car. And by chance, the butt of a gun happens to be sticking out underneath that seat. So,
we got a Fourth Amendment question here.
What if I don't consent to the search? What if you don't consent to the search? They usually don't ask you. Sometimes they ask you, do you consent to the search? And most people consent to the search. You know what I mean? And you say no, then they can go and get a warrant because they happen to have seen. No, the car is going to stay there until they get that warrant.
But there's also something that a lot of people don't realize when it comes to consent. The only person who can say I don't consent to the search is the driver of the car. And I have seen in the Virgin Islands maybe half a dozen cases where after the police come, they release just the driver of the car. That person's not going to be arrested. That person's not going to be charged. Which means all the other people in the car who say, nobody gave consent, or I heard, nobody else has the right to say, I didn't consent to the search. So if you're sitting in the back corner, you're sitting in the front seat, you're sitting anywhere besides the driver's seat, you just sit back and let it happen. You don't have any rights over that.
So you don't have any rights if you are the passenger in the vehicle to whether the vehicle gets searched or not. And what we've also seen too is many persons, when the police pulls up, the passengers decide to what? Run. And sometimes they have nothing on them, right? But they're running, so what? It looks suspicious, right? So, be careful. And we've seen many cases where the police and an individual driver are involved in a high-speed chase, right? Then you can be charged with reckless. Hold on. You have the chase down the highway, down this street here, reckless endangerment. You can be looking at 5 years for having that chase down the highway with the police, right? Yes, 5 years for a chase, reckless endangerment. Well, but you know what? You say they're not catching you. And you know what? They always catch you. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Okay? Well, let me tell you what happened to me. I'm going to give you all a story. May I give you all a quick story? He said, the island is small. There's not many places you can drive and go. I was involved in a major traffic accident about a year and a half ago in Missouri. There was a high-speed chase on the highway, and that's a highway, okay, an interstate. The driver happened, and I didn't know at the time that there was a high-speed chase on an interstate. The driver came down into a neighborhood, into a cul-de-sac, ran into a car that my son was driving and T-boned us on the passenger side. Again, they have a lot more places to go and to drive and a lot more roads. And that person was still caught because they ended up hitting into the vehicle. And the driver jumped out of the vehicle and ran. And the police was right behind of him. So you're saying, well, I'm going to get away. We don't have much road, okay? And then you go in the bush, they will bring out the dogs, they will bring out the teams, and you will be located. So I'm just saying, we are here to educate you, right? We are here to tell you, be careful what you do. Think about what you do. And first and foremost, don't do something that you may think that could possibly get you in trouble. So please be careful. Don't be running those red lights, because you know what? You run the red light, what you end up doing, you hit somebody's vehicle. Then you're charged with vehicular crimes. The person when you run the red light, you've hit the car, the person could be injured, right? So there are things that are innocent or seem innocent, and that's one of the things that can get you in trouble. Touching a young person in their intimate sections where you think, oh, it's a joke, can get you in trouble. Tripping your friend who's walking, who hits the pavement, hits their head, will get you in trouble. Sometimes we don't think about the consequences of things. So we want you to start thinking before you act. All right. One more question,
then we wrap up. All right, this is the last question. Which question did you see? Which question we want to do?
She's asked some great questions, and she has one more question.
Okay. We're gonna let the young lady finish this up with her question.
Back to the pornography thing, right? Yeah. If I have, hypothetically speaking, right? If I have things in my phone of myself and somebody else go in my phone, and I get out.
This is a really good question. This is a question we do get often. Is if I, hypothetically speaking, if I have inappropriate pictures of myself in my phone and somebody else goes into my phone, are you asking, will you get in trouble? Will you get in trouble? You want to answer?
That's a difficult question, and to be honest with you. So the person went into your phone and downloaded the items from your phone. If that person's, that's a crime.
But I think you would be the victim.
But you'd be the victim. We believe you'd be the victim of the crime. But, do not send inappropriate pictures. If you're sending it, that is child pornography. I think we'll one last question. One last question.
Okay, right. Say it's a picture, but it was with me and somebody else.
Whoa, that's specific.
Well, look, do not.
I think that's a crime. I say that's a crime.
Well, so you had the picture with you and allegedly you and somebody else in an intimate, compromising situation, and somebody downloaded that picture. They would be charged with a crime of having that. So, and I think we have a little bit of touchy there, So if it's an unwelcome touching, right, then that is a crime. It's unwelcome, right? He didn't want you to have a little touchy of his posterior, right? All right, so we're going to wrap up. We thank you all. We thank you all so much for your attention. We thank you for being great students who came, willing and prepared to ask difficult questions, right? And I'm hopeful that you've learned something from our presentation that you can share with others so that you can make better choices for yourselves and for your future. Attorney Payton?
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, you guys. If you want to know more about the VI Justice Initiative, you can go online, vijustice.org. You can find out who we are, who are our board members, who is our staff, who supports us. Just know that there's a lot of people in the community that are looking out for you. It costs a lot of money to run programs like this. And there's a lot of people who put in their time, energy, money to make this happen. And we hope to come back. Thank you.